Welcome to Thrive on Mission, the CRA podcast with Jim Book and Dave Jones. Well, Jim, your travels brought you most recently to Ohio. It is cold, it is snowy, but we had the chance to be together for a couple of days at Salt Fork for a person-to-person leader seminar. And what a blessing that was to us who were there.
So, Dave, first of all, that's a beautiful retreat center. What, someone said 20,000 acres?
I had no idea it was
I
that
heard
big.
that 20,000. I may have made that up, but someone said that. And it's the most beautiful. It's a great resort. And so kudos to Person Ministries for hosting this event. Mostly made up of preachers and elders, but I think there was 120 folks there. And you, of course, being one of them, which we always love hanging out with you and your team. But we had an opportunity to break down the word Acts. So it was a 6-hour seminar. So A stands for accelerated growth. I think everybody understands the church needs to grow. My concern is that we've kind of not accelerated over the years. It's kind of just happened without much intentionality. That's all got to change. We have to be very intentional about growth. It needs to be we need to be a priority. And then, of course, the C stood for culturally relevant. Okay. Nobody wants a church that's not connecting with what's going on in everyday life. And the Bible does. There's no better book than the Bible. So culturally relevant, we threw the word compassion in there. And T stands for theologically sound. Okay. We have to be scriptural. I mean, pragmatic growth gets us nowhere. And then finally, S, spirit driven. We can't quench the spirit. As we read scripture, as it cultivates, as it challenges us, then we have to act on it. But then, as you know, Dave,
I got to tell you this, Jim, before you go on, I got to tell you this, that the timing of this event couldn't have been better for me, because the premise is that you're teaching from the book of Acts how to grow the church the way the Lord designed for that to happen. And I didn't know you were teaching on that, but I'm preaching through the book of Acts this year. And so I've
provided you so much information, right?
Yeah. So I've got your outline. I've got Reese's commentary, the Bible, and Jim Book's notes, and I'm set for the year, buddy.
Man, I'm telling you, I just got thrown in with Reese. I'm honored that my name was put in the same sentence as it. So and I'll tell you what, I can't say enough about Alex and Person to Person. They put on a great event. We were just honored. And of course, Dave, for those of in the audience, Dave's a board member of the CRA. I'm associate director. So for us to get invited to be a part of their planning and their event was an honor for the CRA. So thank you for that. But we knew, and I've always believed, we need to it has to be a take home. There has to be something we can walk home with and then implement into our local church. And so we rolled out after this seminar, Mission 120. I called it Project 120. And then Dave, you said, hey, what if we went with the word mission? Totally better. So it's Mission 120. And basically this is an opportunity for every church in America, primarily, and we're looking at our Restoration Movement churches, because that's who we're working with, to increase over the next 4 years their attendance. Now, the reason why we got 120 is I pulled that out of Acts 1. We all know that in the upper room, you have the disciples, soon to be apostles, and they have the gifts, and they come out and they just set the church on fire. But there was 120 disciples that are also there. And I really believe they were very involved in the day of Pentecost. Maybe they were the ones baptizing. I don't know. Maybe they were the ones pointing people where to sit. I don't know. Maybe they were in charge of the parking lot. They were there helping. But the 120 is a number that we are looking at for every church to think in terms of over the next 4 years, what could happen if we averaged 120. So if 70% of the Christian churches and churches of Christ in America are under 120, what would happen if we made that our goal? Now, there's nothing magical about that number. It doesn't mean your church isn't going to go to heaven if you don't get it. But what we're concerned about, Dave, is this. Growth is not a part of our discussion in elders meetings anymore. We don't even talk about it. We don't talk about baptisms. We don't talk about trajectory. We don't talk about where we're moving. Are we discipling? But remember, every soul matters in our community. It's because that soul is going to go to heaven or hell. So numbers and growth needs to be a part of our conversation. It gives us a goal. And it's tangible. It's going to be difficult. Your church has been running 30 for the last 50 years. We're talking about triple, all right, in size, but it can happen. Now, for churches over 120, we're looking at 120 baptisms over the next 4 years. Mission 120, using the 120 number from Acts 1. And we're also providing tools. So you can go online. The RA is getting ready to put all this on its website. It's a link where you can get tools so we can manage you and help you and coach you and consult you as you go along through this campaign with guest cards, putting together a phenomenal First Steps class for every church. So when you have visitors, you can move them from visitor to First Steps class to the baptistry, now to membership, discipleship. And so you were working on retention too, but also baptisms. And you experienced a little victory yesterday at
Yeah, we
Millwood.
we introduced Mission 120 here, and we have more than 120 in attendance. So our approach, as you taught us, was to focus on 120 baptisms by 2030. So within 4 years, 120 baptisms. It's a bit of a stretch for us. Last year we had 18 baptisms, and over the past 20 years, we've probably averaged just at about 15 to 20 baptisms. And so it is going to be a stretch for us to get to that 30, but we launched that yesterday, and we had already had one this year. And I think what it does for us as a church, and maybe for other churches as well, I think a lot of times we can tend to be, you've heard of Sunday only Christians.
Yes.
To be honest with you, I think a lot of churches tend to be Sunday only churches. And so what
Yes.
this really is pushing us to do is to have everybody in our church actively involved, inviting their friends, ministering to the people in their community, and discipling. A long time ago, we really changed our focus here from the preacher being the primary discipler to having as many people discipling others into Christ as possible. And we've got materials that help do that. And we've got programs in place that help people to do that. And so after the service, a young couple, they come and meet with me. And the gentleman, he's been a part of the church here since he was a young guy and baptized years ago. But his fiance is not. And we've been working with her, and a lot of people have been studying with her. And so I sat down and she said, yeah, I've reached that point where I understand what baptism means and why I need to be baptized, and I'm ready. I'm just going to do it now.
Wow.
And so we got up, she changed her clothes, we walked down into the baptistry, and she was baptized into Christ. So Mission 120 for us is now at about Mission 118. We've got 2 on the ranks now. We're just grateful for how God is working through that. And Jim, one of the things that really struck me when you were talking about this at Salt Fork in particular is that, yeah, it's a stretch for us. And I think attendance for some churches to get to 120, it's going to be a stretch for them. It's not unrealistic for any of us that we could do that if we truly do the work God's called us to do, and we trust him to lead us in that way.
Think about the fact that the letter C in Acts we had stand for culturally relevant. People, I don't care who you're talking to, Gen Z, millennials, people want to be a part of something that's relevant to them. They want a job that's relevant. They want to be relevant to their kids and grandkids. Nobody is more relevant to the world than Jesus Christ. And when you consider all that he came to bring to individuals, I just think it's time for us to recognize just how relevant our church is. Now, it's become irrelevant because we've courted relevancy. Sermons are weak. There's no heart and passion for the lost. Music is I mean, everything that not everything, but a lot of what we do in church, in many churches, has distanced itself from the community because a lack of spirit, a lack of biblical authority, a lack of passion. So what would happen if we brought the Holy Spirit back in the equation, passion back in the equation, a sense of urgency back in the equation, and we actually cared that these pews were empty, that we actually cared that these Sunday school classes have been shut down, that we actually care that we don't have elders, or that we actually care that we're losing people every single year. The fact is we don't care. Well, we're going to start caring, but we're not just going to start caring and lamenting the problem. The CRA Mission 120 is going to infuse you with the tools to start winning again. Okay, we're going to be the next University of Indiana, the worst college football team in the world to national champions. You're going to be the most dysfunctional church in the town because you've been that. Congratulations. You've earned that title. The most dysfunctional, irrelevant church in the town. Guess what? We're going to change that with the Lord's help. Okay, we're going to change that, but we're going to give you the tools to change. And you're going to get excited, and you're going to actually fill your baptistry with water instead of Christmas decorations, okay? You're actually going to start using it. You're going to actually start watching those pews get filled. You're going to watch those classrooms now have students, and you're going to realize you could have had this long ago, but now it becomes a focal point of what you're doing. And we used to tell people our staff meetings, we'd introduce our staff meetings at Kissimmee this way. We count people because people count. They count. But we got to make them count, and we got to care. And so, Dave, I love what you did. And I also loved how you said that the young lady that was baptized, you mentioned the different points of entry for her to make that decision. So there was obviously communication with the preacher, but there were other people involved in the church that were pouring into her as well.
Very much.
So let's talk about the team aspect of church growth.
Well, I think 100% the preacher's got to be this. I've heard John Mitchell say there's a plurality of leadership within the church between the elders and the evangelists, but there's always got to be the tip of the spear. And the tip of the spear in the church setting is generally the preacher, the man on stage that is communicating the gospel and advancing the mission and the vision of the church. And so it's really important that from a ministerial standpoint, the preacher is the one that is bought into where the church can be for sure. And then the challenge is, and we can talk about this in a future episode, is getting the elders on board, because a lot of times they're not on the same page. So as you travel around, one of those things we talk about on this podcast is your travels, and you've been to a lot of different churches. What about the churches you're seeing that do have that vision, that are doing something to advance the kingdom, that you visited and had the opportunity to spend some time with?
Well, I'll tell you, these are the churches that excite me,
Yeah.
So, I was talking to a preacher, Southern Illinois, Bill Cox. Bill's in his late 60s. They're adding their third worship service. Okay. They had one, they added two. Now they're talking about adding three. But this guy, and when I walked into the foyer, they had packets of guest cards. Cause when I spoke at their seminar, I was like, hey, we got to make sure our people have plenty of seed to sow. And so everybody needs a stack of guest cards about their church and what their church offers. So spread it to everybody. And he's like, Jim, here are the stacks right when you walk in. I was like, boom.
That's
Bill
great.
is killing it in a New Hope Christian Church in Southern Illinois, this small little town. But man, he is relevant because he's biblical, but he's got his whole church on fire. We have a mutual friend, CJ Epperson. He's in Central Christian in Cynthiana, Kentucky. They're located in a very small building right in the middle of a kind of a depressed neighborhood. But even though the neighborhood's depressed, the message coming out of that church is very impressive. Did a revival for him, I don't know, October, I think it was. The 10 baptisms over that week, 5 while I was there and then 5 after we left, ready to go off the charts with a building program, hopefully expansion. He just called me yesterday. He didn't fill me in. He goes, we just had the best elders meeting we've ever had. And I guess he'll fill me in later. Mutual friend of ours, Dave, and I hope they don't mind me saying this, but Brian Schultz at Kent Christian Church, I met with their elders after the conference at Salt Fork, and they're getting ready to launch some brand new ministry and program that are going to accelerate spiritual and physical growth at their church. And these are just exciting things happening, just a few. And our movement is on fire. And I know we tend to look at the failing churches, church where that's, just kind of wallowing in mediocrity, and a lot are. But what we're going to do is show those churches, hey, here are churches that were where you were at one time. But because they had a vision, they had a plan, and they allowed the Holy Spirit to work, they all got on board. God empowered them and blessed them. And nobody wants to bless the church more than Jesus because he died for it. We got the best cheerleader in the world. That's Christ.
Well, that's good. Jim, you had held up the invite cards there.
Yeah.
You made an offer at Salt Fork for churches that are participating in Mission 120 about invite cards. Where does that fit in? What are some other practical things?
Okay.
Thanks
when I've had people say, oh, I had a text from a preacher, heard about this Mission 120. How do we get involved? So I'm going to call him back today. And I'm going to say, first of all, CRA is going to have a link. So if you go to the Christian Restoration Association website, there'll be a link. Now, it's all happening now. We're all putting it together now because we just rolled this thing out a week ago. And so it's just kind of taken off. So you go to that link and it'll be Mission 120. And on that link, there are steps for every church to take so that growth and development and success has a plan to it. And this kit, if you will, incorporates a guest card. So Dave, I'll just give you an example. A lot of churches I go to, I can't find anything tangible that I can take with me so that when we're out at restaurants that we can say to the waitress, or I'm just out with some friends in the community and go, hey, I don't know if I go to this church. Let me just give you this card. Now, it doesn't have to be a postcard size. The church that I attend has business card size. But basically what it is just the name of the church, and on the back, the most pertinent information you think a visitor would need to know. Now, I hear preachers go, I don't have a card. We don't have anybody in our church that knows graphics. You don't have to. The Christian Restoration Association is your best friend, preacher. We have a group of incredible people that are technologically sound. They're graphic designers. What they will do for a minimal fee is to set your card up. You send all your information, whatever pictures you want. They'll design the card for you, send it back for you to check off. Times look good. We love the look. We love the color scheme. Love the font. Then you go to your local printer and print as many as you want, and make sure now every person in your church has these in their car, their purse, their desk. Let me give you, for instance, Dave, Jeanette and I were out with my brother and sister-in-law. We were at a local restaurant here in Montgomery. We were having pizza, and the waitress was super awesome. And she's like, "Hey, if you don't mind, would you grade me? We're doing this contest at the restaurant." I was like, "Absolutely, you were fantastic. But let me ask you a question." I said, "Do you have a church?" She's like, "No." She's 22, 23. I said, "Well, you do now." I says, "Church I go to, my wife go to, you'll love it." She's like, "Tell me about it." Guess what I didn't have? I didn't have any card. I had not. So my wife, she's tearing off a piece of paper from something and writing all the information on it. It's all jagged, but we gave it to her. I needed the church business card to go, here it is, something tangible. But most churches have nothing for their people. So we tell our people, invite the friends, but we have nothing to give them. We're going to take that excuse away. So part of the kit includes your
Good.
personalized guest card.
I remember when Curt Cignetti was introduced as the Indiana football coach, a lot of people didn't know who he was. And he said, "I'm a winner. Google me." And I thought that was classic. And that is the nature of the world we live in today. So
Yes.
when you talk about passing out invite cards, inviting your friends, you may invite them to church, but they're still going to Google you first. And
Yes.
so when we
Yes.
think about the importance of inviting people to church, what we discovered here at Millwood, even with a brand new building, is our front door isn't the glass doors we installed. It's really the internet. People are going to
Absolutely.
Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Google Maps to figure out what's going on at that church on the hill even before they come.
Dave, you're right. I think we shoot ourselves in the foot. See, we've convinced ourselves people are coming to our church because we preach baptism and we don't do the sinner's
Yeah.
prayer and they're offended. Baloney! A lot of people will check us out on the website before they ever darken the doors. And I love your point, Dave. It's the front door to the church now. It used to be the glass doors. Now it's our website. So let's make sure that we don't shoot ourselves in the foot by having a subpar website that doesn't give enough information. Let's make sure it's clean, concise, and informationally driven. And we'll help you with that. But that is key. That is so important now. It wasn't 30 years ago. Nobody cared. All you had to have is a church sign.
Sure.
Number 2, and Dave, you're big on this because you guys offer this at Millwood. We offer it at Kissimmee. We have to offer a First Steps class. Call it what you want. Introductory to the church. Get to know Jesus. I don't care. Call it something. But where you sit them down in a controlled environment and walk them through what church membership looks like, what baptism looks like, what it means to be a part of the church family, the ministries that our church offer. Now, a lot of churches offer multiple. I think you guys offer 2, don't you, Dave, at yours?
Every month, the last Sunday of the month after service, we do something called Coffee and Conversations,
Okay.
where our welcome team ministry leader and a few other people meet with anybody that's brand new to the church. We lead them through the very basics of the church and their next steps. And what I've found when we're trying to minister to new people in the church, over the years, we've thrown a lot of things at the wall to see what sticks. Just got to do it. You just got to try something. Don't sit and wait for the perfect book or the perfect program.
Do you offer on Sunday mornings?
Yeah, that's a good point, Jim. Sunday morning is good because they're already going to show up for church.
Okay.
And all we say is, hey, we'll
Right.
sit down with
Okay.
you, teach you the basics of what we believe. And so that kind of system, I think, is important. So getting people through the door is vital. And then having that program.
One more thing about that, why I'm a huge fan of the First Steps class or whatever you want to call it. You know this, people will visit a church for weeks, months, and they'll hear the invitation hymn, come forward, and they'll like, you know what, honey, we need to have the preacher over one day. We need to talk about this. Yeah, when we get home, let's look at our calendar. Forget. Next week, you know what, honey, we probably need to talk to the preacher. Or the preacher will see them as they're walking out. Hey, you've been visiting with us for a couple months. Can I come over? the house and sit down with you and talk to you about relationship with Christ? Oh, sure. As soon as we get the carpets cleaned, as soon as we get the dog defleed,
Yeah.
as soon as we get the toilet working in the guest bathroom, we're going to have you over, preacher. Okay. When you offer it at the church facility, like you said, Dave, they're already there. There's a classroom that's already there. It's conducive. It's friendly. You got pastries and coffee, and there's
Yeah.
other people there too. It's kind of like, oh, they're looking at the church too.
Takes
So
a little
you've
bit of
got
that
this
tension
community
off.
already there, huh?
Takes a little bit of that tension off. And I know
Absolutely.
you did this, Jim, and I still do it. I still sit down with people in my office more so than in their homes. And
Absolutely.
before they're placing membership, they're meeting with at least 1 or 2 of our elders. We want them to have some connections with somebody other than the preacher.
And
And the
that
great thing
is
about that
huge.
class is anybody can teach it.
And yeah, and I think that class, if you can have an elder in there too. By the way, if you have 2 in there teaching, it's like a tag team. Like, I'll take this
Yeah.
part, then I'll look to one of my elders and go, "Hey, you want to handle this?" Plus, they're getting to know one of the elders. They're getting
Yep.
to know the preacher, and you hit it on the head, Dave. I'm a big believer the preacher needs to be kind of like the inviter, the spearhead, because what'd you say? The preacher's the tip of the
Tip of
spear
the
or whatever.
spear, tip of the spear.
Exactly, and
Doesn't
and it's
doesn't
what
make
it
you
is,
say, "Oh"
folks.
yeah, that's good.
And so, but anyway, and then we called for a decision then at the end of the class. Once we finished, we're like, okay, if you are an immersed believer in Jesus Christ, you've done it biblically. Are you open to considering becoming part of the church family? If you've never been immersed for the remission of sins, what would stop you from doing it now? Or do you need more time to talk to the preacher? I mean, we weren't going to pressure people, but we called for decisions at the end of the class. It was a separate sheet you checked off. So one way or the other, we want to help every church with invitation cards. So everybody in the church becomes an evangelist. Everybody now has a responsibility of sowing the seed. I don't care if you've been in the church 10 years, 10 months. I don't care if you have an IQ of a radish or you're Einstein. You can invite someone to church. All right.
That's good.
Number 2, start the first step. Okay. Number 3, we said all extracurricular events must include an opportunity for outreach. All right. So you have a ladies group and they do a bake sale and they go to the county fair and they're selling banana bread. Fantastic. You need to have these cards tied up to the banana bread. Plus you need a sheet where they could put their email address. So when you go home, you hand it to the secretary of the church and go, add all these people that we met at the county fair to our all church email information. At our church, we had called Weekend at Glance. Semi-Christian. Here's what we're doing. Everybody got that, whether you were a visitor, whether you stumbled across the church in an event, we included you on what we were doing because proximity determines impact. The more impact we have in your life, the greater we have of getting you into our world. Remember, multiple avenues. Number 4, and you do this, Dave, which I love because I follow you guys like crazy. They ring a bell every time someone's. I'll be scrolling through Facebook and I'll see the bell. I'm like, I don't even need to read the caption like Millwood out of baptism. Someone's standing out by the bell. So you guys do this so well, Dave, but we're going to push this hard. Baptize anytime the opportunity arises and then post the celebration. You don't have to post the baptism necessarily, whatever, but let your whole church know that day somebody made a decision for Jesus Christ today. Tuesday evening, Thursday morning, Saturday night, doesn't matter. That excites people because they're like, hey, hon, guess what? Our church had a baptism tonight. Wow. Okay. I also put this down as part of the curriculum. Attend every opportunity and community event that you can to show forth the church. Anytime your church can be a part of something and promote what God's doing, do it. Okay. And every church and every community is different. But remember, the more avenues that you have to share the faith, the more opportunity you have to connect with people. And we got to be more than just a Sunday morning church. Okay. And I'm all about the Lord's Day and separating that day.
Absolutely.
But I think the community needs to know a little bit about who we are and what we are. And if we're always in a stained glass foxhole, they'll never know that.
Yeah. What you're talking about is incredibly helpful in helping to draw the crowd. We cannot forget numbers are not bad. There were 3,000 souls added to the Lord's church. And so that is important to have a crowd so that you can have somebody to preach to. That's the goal, to convert them to Jesus Christ. So you've done a good job in helping us understand, maybe in drawing that crowd. What have you found to be helpful as far as discipling people, maybe studying with them and leading them to that point of conversion, not just to be baptized, but to be a Christian and live that out?
Okay. So there's 2 roads. How do we get people discipled to where they want to become a Christian, where they want what you have? To me, just showing the goodness of God everywhere creates conversation. Like, hey, can I just tell you something? You look different, talk different than everybody else at work. Well, maybe I'll tell you why I do. It's nothing about me. I'm a cantankerous old person just like you. The only difference is someone introduced me to a life-changing man called Jesus Christ.
No, yeah.
And that's where you, hey, can we meet for coffee? Can I tell you about what makes me different? Not better, but different. Yeah. So that's where we get the church involved in evangelism. If the last thing I have for project or for Mission 120 is, so let's say we have 3 million baptisms over the year. Fantastic. But we're still averaging 50. Somehow, okay, we still got a formula that's not working. The last step is retention, retention, retention. Okay. Mission 120 doesn't work without retention, retention, retention. So as I see this play out, I look at the evangelist as the point man for conversion. Not that he's the only one, but he's kind of the cheerleader on stage going, how many did you witness to anybody this week? And maybe a testimony of someone who said, I had a great opportunity to witness to my friend. They're here today. All right, celebrate that. But I want the elders, because I think this is scriptural, to focus on that person comes up out of the baptistry. They're drying off. They walk out. They need to see an elder. Congratulations. I was so thrilled to see you baptized. I'm going to be your elder. Translated, I'm going to be your shepherd. I want you to know if there's anything I can pray for you about. I'm going to help guide you to a Sunday school class, or I'm going to give you a couple options for life groups that meet around your home, and we're going to help you get plugged in. So his job, shepherd, this is actually biblical. Pinch me, biblical. Elder, your job is to shepherd that person. All right. So evangelist, we're going to give you kind of the free rein to evangelize, to baptize, to get people excited about baptism. Elders, we're going to turn over retention to you. And so we can keep them. Now, all of a sudden you have two highly functioning programs. Introductory, this is where we bring you in. Retention, this is how we keep you. All right. And that's how you go from 120, 150, 180, because you're baptizing, but you're also discipling. So being strong on baptism, bad on retention gets us nowhere. Retaining the handful of people that we have forever, great. No baptisms, still got a problem. So you can't have one without the other.
That's good. That's good. Well, Jim, as we wrap this up here, just help us describe and understand best the vision for Mission 120. Like, where do you see this going, and how's it going to help the Lord and his church to be what he wants us to be, would you say, moving forward?
Everything rides on the church. Okay, so we want strong Christian camps. Fantastic. You want a lot of kids at church camp. Great. We need youth ministers and preachers as camp counselors. Guess what? Camps don't work if the church fails. Okay, we need more kids going to Bible college trained for preachers. Yay! Guess what? Bible colleges cannot survive if the church is not strong. It all rides on the church. Our point is simply that if the church fails, our movement's dead. You can't say, well, if the church fails, at least we have the Bible college, at least we have the church camp, at least we have this parachurch organization. Baloney. It all rides on the church. So as the church goes, so goes our entire movement. And I'll tell you what, as the church goes, so goes the world. So what began with 120 disciples, Dave, spilled into actually every corner of the world. Antioch, Corinth, Ephesus, Rome, Millwood, Montgomery, Alabama. Notice, although the Gospels were written in conclusion, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, they were written by great men, but they're done. They're no longer being written. That's fine. I don't need them to be written anymore. They're still alive. They're still pertinent. They're still infallible. But in a sense, get this, in a sense, the book of Acts continues to unfold in the church of Christ today. Yes, book of Acts is still unfolding. The work of Acts, the teachings of Acts, the church growth plan, the tools to grow are all still being rolled out in my church and in my ministry and every church of Christ today. So I'm telling you, Dave, I think what's happening is we see a vibe shift in America today. Politically speaking, there's some great things happening, I believe. I'm watching Gen Z people. I'm watching revivals on college campuses. I'm watching things happen in foreign countries that we never thought would happen. And I'm like, why in the world is the Church of Christ not taking full advantage of this golden opportunity, this window that I think God's allowing to happen? I think he's permitting these potential opportunities to happen. Let's don't sit on this, man. Let's ride this baby out.
Yeah.
Mission
Love,
120.
love it. Hey, I really appreciate that, Jim. Good insight for us, and hopefully the churches in America are going to grab hold, and we're going to see compounding growth over the
Amen.
next couple of years in the Lord's church.